All right, so welcome to today's episode of the Victor and Sharon Show, not to be confused with the Dave Chappelle Show, but we're still that funny. So, I'm your host, Victor Bell Jr.,
and Sharon Bell,
the sex what? The
sex goddess,
the sex mechanic, working it out, turning the wrenches on Victor. So anyways, so today's episode of the Victor and Sharon Show, we want to go over a very trivial topic. A lot of people, I say this all the time, and I think we've kind of come into agreement on it over the years, is that bond versus balance thing.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, there's this thing in the personal development world, and I got caught into it too, where, like, you go into personal development, especially as a success-driven person, they kind of make you feel bad for wanting to succeed, even though they talk about, living an exceptional life, and a lot of it has to do with, like, your partner. Like, you have this drive, and then you're with this person, and there's this feeling of, like, I should have balance in my life. I should have all of it, like all this stuff. But I found as a success-driven couple, that doesn't exist.
Right.
So we're going to kind of go over our experience with that today, and hopefully it'll help, thousands and thousands and thousands of couples around the world.
So the topic for the day is bond versus balance, or bond and balance. And can you have both, or one or the other?
No.
Right? No?
No. You can only have a great bond, and balance your bond becomes your balance.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, right?
That's what we've learned over the years.
Yeah, we have. So, really to do this, I brought my nifty board. I'm getting all fancy. It's technology, y'all. So, I want to do this. So, everybody's been on a seesaw, and we'll use one of my seesaws. I don't know what kind of playground you went to when you were a kid, but the playgrounds where I grew up at kind of look like that. Like, so you sit on this side and somebody sits on this side. So let's say, on the average, we're going to talk about this being a couple, right? So this is Victor sitting on this side, right? There's me, it's my glasses. I'm smiling, right? That's me. It does kind of look like me, right?
Yeah, it does.
I'm a great drawer.
Yeah, you are.
So, but this is Sharon.
Oh, gosh. Make sure I have hair.
She has hair, right? Right?
He's a terrible drawer.
Big boobs.
Oh, gosh.
Anyways, and these are our children: Marquise, Max, Leo, Keisha, Tasha, Aaron. That's a lot for me to try to balance. But the whole world definitely tries to make you feel bad. You should have balance. And I used to be one of the dudes who actually believed in this too. I would tell people, you need to go spend time with each one of your kids individually. Because at the time, I was able to do that. But as I got more successful and I wanted more, that changed, right? So this has been the thing. So it's like, and then everyone on this side is like, why can't you hold us all up? And we're like, dude, because I'm not that strong. I'm not that dude. So in your marriage, especially, now here's the deal. If you're just a normal couple, that is
I'm going to get this because I'm
is that bugging you?
Erase
But,
it.
What are you
We're going to erase it because we're going to show what it really should look like.
Later, man, we got that down pat. See, this is
Okay.
what I'm talking about. So Sharon cannot walk past something. Now, I just told her, I was like, when I have the other office, you got to stay out of it because she deletes and wipes down everything. So that's what she's getting ready to do. So knowing that if you're a success-driven couple, there's going to be things about you that doesn't match a lot of the stuff that's being taught out there. So while you may believe you're supposed to have balance because that's what we saw, maybe your parents, you're like, yeah, they had the perfect marriage, or worse, they had the shittiest marriage ever. You're like, I don't want that. I'm going to spend time. My mom and dad, they worked all the time. They didn't have time for us. There's a difference between some success-driven couple like Sharon and I. She has her wants. I got my wants. I have a business. She has acting, business stuff that she does. She's a trainer and other things. Like, there's a difference between that. And we got kids, like hard-headed kids who we also want to see succeed. And we got grandkids that we want to spend time with. There's no way for us to achieve all of that and then say, well, look, I'm going to balance this out, right? There's only 24 hours in a day. And if you are like us and we hustle like 12 to 14 hours of those days, we sleep a little bit, we have to get it all in, or if we don't, we won't hit the level of success that we want. So
let's go back. I mean, we're already kind of incorporating the family and the extension of our kids and all of that stuff, right? But let's rewind a little bit and take it back to just when it was just you and I. And how do you create bond and balance between just husband and wife, right? let's get down to the nitty gritty before we start talking about balancing all of the other aspects in our lives.
Nitty-gritty.
So let's take it back to the time when we finally decided as a couple, or what was the story, or what was the time in our relationship where we finally said, let's regroup here, because at some point in time in the past we had issues, right?
Right.
We were going to get a divorce, right?
A lot.
Many times in our first 10 years of marriage, we were going to get divorced like every other week,
Day.
So people nowadays, they ask us, well, how did you guys get to this point now where you guys don't even seem like you even had any issues in the past? So let's take it back to the time that we finally decided, what was the pivotal point
Let's
for
talk
us?
about that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we were actually in the process of rebuilding our marriage, so we had like a huge, massive blowout. It was a lot of shit going on. So we ended up going to this restaurant that we would go to a lot of dates, and we did have kids already. So we're already beyond the no kid time, because there's a lot of those times. But it was like sitting down at this restaurant we went to all the time named 53 by the Sea. It's in Honolulu. Great place. If you ever want to go there, man, we love that place. And we were sitting down. As a matter of fact, it was like our wedding anniversary again, wasn't it? It was like,
It was my birthday.
April 6th. It was like our wedding anniversary again. So
Mm-hmm.
it was one of those deals. And we sat down and we were like, okay, we aren't going to get divorced. We got that. And the pivotal question for us that really put us on track was, what do you want? I asked Sharon, I was like, that we're not getting divorced. We're going to make this thing. We aren't going anywhere. No, you aren't in charge of our marriage, just like I'm not in charge of our marriage anymore. I can only be in charge of my own emotions. And that I'm going to control my emotions in the direction where we're headed. What do you actually want? And Sharon was like, I've always wanted to be like, no, I'm sorry. You were like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, you got to know, man. You got to know what you want. Don't think what you want based on what you think I want for you anymore. That's not where we're at.
Well, let me interject. Couple steps before that night was, we had got to the point where we were like, okay, we can't do this. Well, let's just get a divorce. But we finally sat down and decided, okay, we're going to stay together. So we finally got on what we somewhat call the same page, right?
Right.
So we said, okay, well, now that we know that divorce is out the window, I was still kind of straddling the fence, and so was he. So that's why this dinner was such a pivotal moment for us, because that's when we finally sat down and we were like, what do you want? And it was hard for me to answer, because the years before that, I was really doing things that I thought he wanted me to do.
Right.
Or I was doing things business-wise that I thought would maybe support his dreams and his visions. And somewhere along the line there, I kind of lost track of who I was and what I wanted to do. So when he asked me that question, I was kind of like, I don't really know what I want to do.
Yeah.
You know?
For real.
And so it was a big pivotal question for me. And it really made me sit. And then finally, throughout the night, after talking a little bit, I was kind of like, well, I've always wanted to act.
And I was blown away, because we had been married for 10 years at the time, and I had never known that.
Yeah.
Ever. I was like, where'd that come from? I thought you wanted to do real estate with me.
And that's because all the time before, I was doing things that dealt with real estate, because I wanted to be the good wife and support Victor with his real estate things, and why not get involved in something?
Instead of paying all these other people, we can just do it ourselves. So that was big for me, because it made me really value the fact that somebody else in my world, that I always wanted this. But regardless of what you want, what you get are two different things. So that night was really a big deal for us, because that started the journey really to the branding of Sharon and Belle, which later, she's one of the top actresses in Hawaii. She was on Lifetime TV a bunch of times, regular TV a bunch of times, a bunch of small films, student films that you were kind of like a part of, as well as a lot of box, I don't know what they're called, box office films and shit like that, big name films that Sharon was actually a part of, all from that conversation. But had we not really just decided once and for all, one, that we weren't going to leave each other, and two, give each other the space to say, hey, I want to be successful. What do you want to be successful in, so I can actually support that? Because if not, we won't make it as couples if we don't make it as individuals. So that was huge for us. So the part of this is, and like I said, and I think one of the reasons why we wanted to do this show is because we've talked to a lot of couples who, one, they've made it, two, they have not made it. And we continue to see the same thing. So like you said, people ask, how do we make it? And when we tell them, it's no-brainer for us that we had to let go of the lie that there should be balance in our marriage. And we really just kind of branched on to look, let's just swing for the fences, and we just make everything we do count. right? You be you, I'll be me, and every opportunity we have, we'll make that opportunity to bond with each other more quality in 15 minutes than we would have had we said, nope, not going to happen. We need 2 hours or nothing, or it doesn't count. And we let that go.
Yeah, and I think today what we're going to do, though, is we're going to take 3 of our biggest tips for you. That's
3.
1, 2, 3 of our biggest tips that's really helped us in our relationship as it relates to being a successfully driven couple.
Right.
In business and in marriage, right? Because your marriage
your
is your business, right?
We're talking about the business of marriage, right? Because if you don't treat your marriage like a business, it will go out of business. And like we said, 85% of most marriages in the United States or America, they fail.
And we were well on our way to being one of those failures.
Right.
Okay.
And
if we had decided that that's what we wanted, but we decided that we're not going to do that, and we're going to be one of the successful 15%ers, right? But so then what are our 3 big tips? Well, I think the very first one that I'd like to start off with is...
So I guess we'll go with them as lies, not tips.
Yeah.
Right?
Kind of
so
like myths,
what is the myths?
and lies.
I like lie. Lie just stings. Like, dude, you're a liar.
You're a liar.
Right? Rather than say, that was a myth. First lie is that you should be able to turn it off and turn it on. A lot of couples feel like, well, especially when they're not equally going after success individually, right? You have one person that says, I'll wait for you to succeed, then I'll go after my dreams. There's that feeling like you have to shut off yours so the other person can shine. Like there's an on and off switch.
There's an on and off switch. And we're talking about it from the aspect of maintaining a business and having a marriage and a personal relationship as husband and wife.
And parents.
And
parenting.
parents as with kids, right?
Right.
So when we say that there's no on and off switch, what we really mean is, is that a lot of people think that, okay, there has to be a set amount of time. At 5 o'clock, we're going to sit down and we're going to have dinner, and no one's going to be allowed to talk about business. Right?
When does that ever happen?
Or it's 8 o'clock at night, and I'm tired. I just took my shower, and it's time to go to bed. Strict guidelines, strict time frames. And what we learned over the years is that there is no on and off switch.
Nope.
Or there shouldn't be one.
Right.
Right?
Because, unfortunately, like when you have an off switch, or someone else has an off switch and you're on I'm on all the time.
Yes, he's on all the time.
All the time. So like some people may think that when you see me, like, oh, Victor walks fast, talk fast, cuss all the time, he's always moving, why won't people go faster? Like that's just for show. That is really who I am.
No, that is. It is.
I feel bad for Sharon sometimes. I'm like, dude, I bet she's like, man, you do not shut up. But she loves me, right?
I do.
As is.
And I've learned over the years to really love the fact that he's always on.
Right.
Right?
And Sharon's always on too. Don't get it twisted, because if you wind her up, crack, she'll go. But that's what attracted me to her.
Yes.
Right? So like everyone says they want this, I want a power couple relationship. When I see this woman or when I see this guy, they're that driven. I wish my other person was like that. When you think about what you're asking for, when you really get it, this person has to be that way all the time. And if not, then you feel robbed. Like, I know some couples will be like, well, we don't want to talk about business at dinner. We don't always want to talk about business in front of our kids. We want to kind of figure this out, and we want to have this separation of this. But if your life is about succeeding, and we'll talk about that later, your whole life should be about succeeding. So there's not this element where you say, no, we're not going to talk about that. There's no off switch that I got. If I'm talking about buying property, real estate, building the business, the training company, working out, spending time with the boys, let's go bowling, let's go to this place, let's spend time with the kids, let's get on the phone call, let's go to dinner. I never should. There's no separation between that switch.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you think you're going to sit at dinner with me and go, hey, let's not talk about business, I'm going to be like, shit, dude, what are we going to talk about?
It's funny. We actually had a dinner one night before where I was thinking in my mind, I was thinking, okay, I'm going to experiment. I'm not going to talk about business on my side. And it was like the most quietest dinner ever.
Yeah.
Like there was like nothing to talk about. I mean,
I talk.
He talked a lot about, and I just listened, which was great because he got an opportunity to talk. But I realized that, man, I really missed out because there was things that I wanted to talk about, but I was actually practicing not to say anything. But, in my mind, it was still going too.
Yeah.
And so I felt kind of robbed and cheated after that dinner and was like, oh, man, I didn't get to say what I wanted to say. So, for me, I just had to learn that, even though there is no on and off switch, I also had to learn that there is definitely a respect for the fact that we should be able to talk about
you should be able to talk
business at any time you want.
Yeah.
Or talk about whatever you want at any given time. And so to ask somebody to say, hey, look, this is family time. We're eating dinner. Let's talk about other things. You're going to find a lot of times too when you're successfully driven like that. When you do stop talking about what you're really passionate about, it's really
there ain't shit else to talk
there's
about.
nothing to talk about.
Like,
It's like quiet.
So, I'm gonna go shower.
You can hear crickets, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah. And here's a good thing to kind of add on to that. So for couples out there that are success driven couples, and you feel like Sharon, I didn't know about her experiment, so it actually worked for me. If you use if you say, I'm just going to not talk, 9 times out of 10, whatever you're not saying in your mind is now not coming out of your mouth, so you can't hear at the same time. So the other person is going on about what's really important to them. You miss out because you're in your own head, and then when they ask you a question, it's almost like you weren't paying attention, and then you get that second argument. You don't even care. You don't listen to me.
You don't even listen to me. And that, that has happened to us a lot.
Big time, yeah.
Because, I'm in my own head, and he's
I'm in
rattling
mine.
on. And so at some point in time, that you do have to have that level of, okay, I want to interact, and I want to bond, and I want to get what we want to hear and hear from each other and share. So over the years, we've learned to just really not turn the switch off to the fact that we can have a great conversation and share about both of our passions at the same time. So if we have that switch that says, nope, we're not going to talk about that. Well, I might have this brilliant idea, and I really need to get it off my chest right now. And how are you going to tell me that this is not the right time to talk about it?
Nope, I don't want to hear it. I'm eating spinach. It's like, dude, you can listen and eat at the same time, because that's it's like turning an off switch. It's like you can't turn your car off and then the engine still run. Like everything has to work together, but it works together well that way. You can't get anywhere without having all systems running at the same time.
Well, that brings me to another point though, because we're talking about bond and balance, though, right? So
just bond. There's no balance.
If we don't have this on and off switch, does that mean we don't have a bond? Are we not sharing a great moment together, or are we not bonding and having this sense of togetherness? Well, I'll tell you some of the greatest times that Victor and I have had as it relates to being husband and wife and being close is that, the times that I can recall is when we are sitting in the car and we only get that 5 minutes to talk on the way to a meeting. Right? And we have just maybe 15 minutes to get there, but we're talking about business and our passions and our lives and our goals and where we want to go and what we want to do. And I'll tell you, I get more out of that 15 minutes than I would get out of an hour date.
Yeah.
Right? At a restaurant. So can you have balance and bond at the same time? We would say no, because in an ideal situation, a date would be an hour at a really nice restaurant, over hors d'oeuvres and talking and sharing wine and talking. But I get more out of spending 15 minutes in the car holding hands and talking about our dreams and goals, and that's a bond. Right. That's a sense of togetherness.
That's this, right?
You know what I mean?
So,
but it would seem off balance, right? Because that's not technically what you would think as bonding, having this great bond. But
which brings us, and that brings us to the next one that we got. Yeah. So, the other lie that I bought into, especially, is that everything needs to be perfect, right? Yes. Because I grew up looking at my parents got divorced when I was young, right? So I watched other friends that their families were still together. And what I saw from the outside looking in, especially as a kid, was this perfect marriage of a husband and wife, and they were together, right? So when I grew up, I had desires and stuff that I wanted to achieve, but when I saw the marriage side of it, I'm like, all right, well, I think it needs to be perfect. Mm-hmm. And what I learned, and I think especially because, here's the other side to this. Sharon and I are both on our second marriages. We're second marriage people, right? So we already failed once. So we're like, dude, we got to make this shit work, right? So I also have a snapshot of what I thought worked as a kid seeing. So I saw my family. My parents are great parents. I love them to death. My friends' parents that I saw that I looked up to were also great parents. Some of them lasted while my friends were together. Mm-hmm. All of my friends, the family was together, and then they weren't together anymore. So I have all these different snapshots of what I thought was a perfect marriage, perfect life, perfect wife, perfect husband, perfect dad, perfect kids. But then when I took a look at my own marriage, my first marriage failed. Then Sharon, your marriage failed too, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. So I failed. I was like, don't say failed. I'm like, dude, it's a failure, whatever, call it what it is. The side to it that really got me was when I made the decision that I was going to take what, to me and to the rest of the world's version of what was perfect, as being like, dude, it doesn't have to be perfect. It needs to be perfect to me. So be okay with the imperfections of what I thought. We don't go to bed at the same time. The lights don't go off. We don't always watch the same shows.
We don't eat dinner at the same time.
We don't always eat dinner at the same time. My kids don't always take showers at the same time. Sometimes they'll fall asleep and they'll take a shower. One's asleep, one's not.
Yeah.
But that harmony that we've created through perfecting our imperfections makes our bond so much stronger, because I can say there's no one who could hold a candle to my wife. There's no one who can be better than my kids. There's no one who I'd want to spend the rest of my life with. Not because we're perfect, but because we've created almost an art around the imperfection that has become who we are. And that's really what I was looking for as a kid. It was never the perfection of what I thought, because all of the perfections of what I thought failed. And when I tried to model it, I failed too. Right?
Yeah.
So,
and
what are your thoughts?
Well, the thought I have to think when you talk about imperfection, I also look at it as that night at 53 by the Sea. One of the other things too, when he asked me, "What do you want?" It really kind of set me on this path of trying to find my purpose. Right. And what I realized is that we kind of I stunted a lot of times my growth and Victor's growth when I kept looking and focusing just on the purpose and not really looking at his potential for greatness. Like even for me, I had to first I had to define what my purpose was, and then I had to look at what is my potential with that purpose.
Which is huge, right?
Which is huge if I allow it to be huge. But what we found over the years, though, especially after I tried to figure out what I wanted, was I tried to make it seem like it had to be this perfect path, or it had to be done a certain way. And there is no way to do it.
Right.
There is no one way.
Here's the key to that, the no one way to do it, is because, and Sharon just made a good point. Like I said, and I want you guys to think about this in your own marriages. You probably were attracted to the person that you're with because you saw the potential of what they could be, not where they are. Yeah. Right? So usually what we do is we go, man, she's hot, or he's hot. Because you see the potential of where they are now, and then the potential of what they could be, and you guys making a life together that way. So that's usually a big conflict in people, where you go, look, I want to be successful, you're a successful person, or you want to be successful, I see where you can go, like we said, and then to get with that person, and then they go, no, I don't want to do that, or you watch them be able to be a person that has the capacity to be great, and then they don't play to that level, and then there's this weird disconnect. And then that's where people are like, well, maybe we're disconnected because we don't have balance. Like, well, maybe it's because you aren't living up to the potential that I know you could be, and I'm not living up to my potential because I'm holding back because I want us to be at the same level, and then we don't. Well,
the other side of that too is this, though, is that another key thing for me on that night was the years before I thought I had purpose because I was doing things that I thought were supporting Victor.
Right, and I'm not your purpose.
But that wasn't, it didn't even dawn on me that wasn't my true purpose.
Our kids are not our purpose. I'm not Sharon's purpose. Sharon's not my purpose. I'm my purpose. So I'm my huge potential.
Right, so when I finally was able to embrace that, Sharon, stop doing things for what you think is expected, that your partner expects you to do, or that you think that you are expected to do.
Right.
When I finally started focusing on what my true purpose was,
what do you want?
What I wanted, right? Then I was able to really seek out my true potential. Right. And then when you combine that with the support of somebody who is truly on their own purpose and going towards their true potential, and you can embrace the fact that, hey, we have two different journeys, but we're together. That's a bond.
For real.
Okay, that to us as a couple, as a successfully driven couple, is what bond is to us.
Yeah.
Is because we can appreciate the fact that we're two individual people and we are seeking our own true purpose.
Right. And then we push each other. Because then if I succeed, I'm like, boom, go for it, man. Like, you should do it too, babe. Something totally different, but it doesn't make sense for somebody to be like, well, I win, and then when I win, I'll turn around and drag you across the finish line, because what happens? They get across the finish line because you drugged them, and that wasn't really their finish line. And then when you let them go after dragging them, they pop up and run back to the start. That's not a good relationship. So, opening the door for somebody to say, look, what do you want, man? What do you want? Because that's kind of how I do stuff. I call everybody man. I'm like, man, what do you want? And it's like, that's a scary question for people who haven't figured out that, one, like we said, there's no on and off switch. So you don't have to turn it off. Number two, just be okay with the imperfection that is the relationship, that is you, that's coming out. And open the door for that person to actually expand and grow. And then just say, look, it's not going to be perfect. It's going to be messy. It's going to be one of those feed or famine type marriages because we have to get to the top if we want to be successful, which leads us into the third piece. But let's do that together. You know, what do we say? Like, I think what was in Spartacus was one of the best parts in Spartacus that was a tipping point for me was when, like, the chick that everyone hated, the blonde chick who, like, turned on everybody, I think it was, like, part 3.
It's third season.
And her husband, like, they were, like, the worst people ever in the show. But it was, like, the part where she screwed up, he screwed up, and then they were at the room, and she was like, let's be monsters together.
Yeah.
And they came together, and they were, like, unstoppable. And I was like, you know what? That's me and Sharon. So when my thought process,
you're a monster and I'm a monster, so we can.
Let's be monsters together. Yeah, like let's go dominate, right?
And,
like in our own worlds.
And to do that, you know, honestly, you have to really be on the same page.
Well, yeah,
but,
which leads us to our other part.
This is the third.
Right. Everyone's like, well, we talked about this before, that why we're so different. Well, there is no. You need to be on the same page because you have to create a page. There is no set page. Like when we got married. And I know this book doesn't exist, so even though there's a bunch of marriage books, relationship books and stuff, none of them work, because if that was the case, most marriages would work, because everyone would get issued this book, this how-to book, a memorandum that says, hey guys, look, this is how this works, make this work, read this book, study it, embody it, swim in it, and you'll make it. So when you know that you have to be on the same page, but there is no page, it's a lot easier. So let me rephrase that. That there's no page. You have to create a page. Sharon and I's marriage worked. And your marriage, if you're like us, will work. When you create the page, when you write your own rules, when you stop playing by everybody else's guidelines.
And that's what, in a sense, we did on that night at the dinner at 53 by the Sea, is when Victor asked me, you know, what do you want to do? What do you want?
Right.
It really took for me to say, you know, I want to be on the same page with you. And I want to, first of all, say yes to this, to you and I.
Yeah, that was the page we wrote.
That's the page we wrote that day.
Because for all accounts and purposes, for what we were dealing with at the time, that was the end of our marriage.
Yes.
Like, it was the end of our marriage primarily, just like a job that you quit 3 years before you actually walk out. That last piece was the part where it's like, hey, I think it's time for us to walk out. But I made a decision like, hey, look, this can work. We're not getting divorced. Let's just get that off the table. So now that we know that where we're headed. And then it was just like, okay, new book, all blank pages. What do you want?
Pages.
Right? Once we got on the pages of the book we were writing, our writings, then it didn't matter what happened, what somebody else said, what had went in our past,
what somebody else is thinking,
what somebody else is thinking, what I was thinking, what Sharon was thinking. Yeah. I didn't have to think anymore about what she was thinking. That's the biggest problem in most marriages, right? Well, I'm not going to say this because I already know what she's going to say or think.
Yes.
Or we don't ask her like we talked about it. There's no idea that Sharon comes up with that I'm like, what? No, that's ridiculous. Don't do that. I'm going to be like, yeah, man, whatever. Go for it. How can I help? Even if I don't agree with it, doesn't matter. It's not what I want because that's her success. We're a success-driven couple. There's things I want, things she wants, and I want to support her in it. I don't have to like it. That's her page. There is no page unless we write it. So we write all our pages together, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, cool.
So create your own book together.
Right.
But be on the same page. Write your own pages.
Right.
And as long as you're in agreement with something, then it can't be wrong, right? And I think that's what happened with us is we stopped letting a lot of external factors and judgments and expectations and all of those things get in the way of our decisions. And when we finally decided, you know, no, look, we're going to be on our own pages and our pages are going to come into agreement. And if you find yourself in disagreement, then you just finally have to ask yourself, okay, well, go back to the root of how it brought us back together is, well, what do you want in this situation?
Yeah, what do you want?
What do you want? And if your partner really loves you and supports you, then guess what? They're going to support you. And you're going to finally get back on that page, and then you rewrite that chapter. Yeah. And you create that book, your book.
The truth is, you don't have to like it because it's not what you have to do.
Yeah.
Like, if she wants something that I don't like, that's her goal. I don't have to do it. Like, all I want, like, hey, you know, support sometimes just means listen to you when you have something to say about it. I'm like, cool, man, let's do it. When we talk about agreement, I don't have to accept to agree. I can just like, you know what, that's cool, man, you go for that. That's cool, whatever. That's the difference between success-driven people. Like, if you're looking to succeed at a thing, and like we talk about, the definition that we use is the Webster's definition of success, which is the attainment of a predetermined goal or an outcome. So when she has something that she's already set in her mind to do, just like me, and she wants to succeed at that thing, she's already going for it. I don't have to even want the same thing, but I just need to be there for her because worst case scenario, that's my partner. That's my peeps. I love Sharon.
And you know what? I do have to end on that point, babe. He brought up a really good point. When he started doing that for me, when I started letting myself off the hook, the biggest takeaway for me and the biggest takeaway that I want you guys to get out of this episode today is don't beat yourself up.
yeah, for sure.
Don't beat yourself up if, meaning for me as far as the ladies are concerned, is don't beat yourself up if you feel like, you want to disregard an expectation that was held for you by somebody else. Like, hold yourself to your own expectations. And 9 times out of 10, I guarantee you, if it's something that you truly want or something that you truly feel passionate about, your husband, your spouse, your partner is going to agree with you and they're going to support you 100%.
Yeah.
And that's what I found over the years is I used to beat myself up because I used to already have a prejudgment in my mind. And I would already convince myself that it was going to be a no or we were going to get into an argument about something before it even happened.
Right.
You know?
And I'll be honest with you, Sharon, you've heard me say it 1,000 times. I'm not that deep. So, because I'm quiet, I'm really listening because I care, and I'm kind of I'm really listening to Sharon or anybody talk to me about something. But so because I'm quiet, because I'm always talking, people think because I'm quiet that I'm reading into something, but I'm really not. I'm not that deep. I'm like a super shallow pond. I'm just all on your team. Yeah, I am. I really am. So biggest thing for guys, I can say, especially success-driven dudes, like we're typically driven and we're probably reptile brain people, meaning like we don't need a lot of information. We just want to know when we can move on to the next thing because we're about speed and going fast. I just really listening to anybody and be like, okay, cool, man. Yeah, you should go for that. Unless I have like some thought process through my past experience to share. But my share is not about changing your mind. It's just about offering up like, hey, you know what? I've had that experience. Here's what happened. Let me know how I can help. And then that's it. But if you assume there's more than that, and I know for guys, like that's some of our challenges. Like we enter listening and being accepting, like, hey, I want to accept what you're saying, is going into the last time I didn't say anything, I got beat up. So I'm going to say something and then you get beat up again. So you're like, dude, I don't know what to do. So don't. So for you guys out there that like, also don't beat yourself up and just be like, okay, man, how can I support you in that? Got it. And move on. That was the last piece of this. So one, how do you fix all this stuff? How do you deal with your bond? How do you strengthen the bond? Take what you can get. Like we said, first, strengthen your bond. There is no off switch. There is no off switch. Accept all things that come. When you're success driven, make that happen. If you are not a success driven couple, this conversation, I think I should be balanced and we should just be able to play with the kids and turn the phones off and put them down and blah, blah. Hey, that's good for you guys. That has not been our way, right? So next is perfect imperfection. Sometimes that driving the car, holding pinkies, which we do a lot. We're like driving and be like, we can have just had like an uneasy conversation about what's happening, where I'm upset, she's upset, and there's this part where I just kind of stick my hand on the console of the truck, and she'll just grab my finger, or vice versa. And I know we're going to be okay, and we can talk about something totally different. Now, it's taken years to build that, but work on it.
Yes.
Work on it.
Definitely.
Like I said, if you aren't that deep because you aren't beating yourself up over what just happened 3 seconds ago, then you can hold hands and it's over. Because our kids, they're probably like, damn, they're mad. And all of a sudden, we're holding hands laughing in the kitchen seconds later because we aren't beating ourselves up over something that didn't go well.
It just happened 3 minutes ago because the past is the past, even if it was just 1 minute ago.
Yeah, I'm not that deep to hold myself over the flames, and you shouldn't be either because I'm not even thinking about it anymore. I moved on. And last but not least, write your own page. Be on the same page of succeeding. So there is no past page that you need to be on based on somebody else. Write your page as you go. Yes. Right? Where do you want to go? What do you actually want? Focus on that only. And then don't beat yourself up every time you maybe veer off the path a little bit. Focus on bonding with each other. Just let balance go, man. It's just a myth. It's a lie. People sell balance because they're selling balance. If I sell you a program to balance your life, I will sell you on the benefits of balance. But if you're success driven, there's no way to get to success trying to balance your life. your life is the success. There's no balance to that. You bond with everybody on the journey with you, right? And if it's your wife, because this is the business of marriage, how do you balance, how do you bond inside of the business that is your marriage? This is it. This is all you can look forward to every day. Everything else is a guess, and everything else you write on your own pages. And if you don't do that, man, you're going to have a tough time. So,
yes, create your own book. And don't forget, because you're creating your own book, there's also an eraser on the other side of that pencil tip, right?
I use it all the time.
You can erase and start over, right? And also, because it's a book, you can tear out pages.
Right? It's your book. You wrote it. Tear the page out, ball it up. And then when you get to the end, people look like, wow, this is a great book. They miss all the pages
They missed all the pages you threw out.
The
trash cans filled with pages of mistakes that you made or whatever. But nobody has to know about those chapters, right? They just see a great book.
No shit. But you gotta be okay. You gotta be okay with tearing out your screw ups. Right. So I hope this helps you guys, man. I hope this actually adds value to your life, man. Forgive the imperfections of the freezes of our video. We'll get better at it, and if that bugs you, then don't watch the show.
And the audio, we're gonna get better.
Yeah, you know what? The audio's boss. The visual sometimes is not. So again, we're just doing this because we want to help more couples. We really are. Like, we aren't even telling you to do something we don't have to practice daily in our own lives.
We do.
We aren't perfect. We're still writing pages as we go. So,
to
your wins, man. To your wins.
To your wins.
Vic, Sharon, signing off. Love you guys.
Bye.